Red flag number two, the context of the complaint are almost nil. There's really, it's like there's no really actual facts.
If this is such a mistake and impossible and not appropriate and going to get them in trouble, why would they have done it?
Ryan Reynolds has officially hit his breaking point, and it's all because Blake Lively just pulled the dumbest stunt of her career. That's not an exaggeration. We're talking about a fake lawsuit so shady, so outrageously stupid that even Hollywood's most scandal-hardened insiders are gagging. No, this isn't the kind of drama you laugh about over champagne at a Vanity Fair after-party. This is my career might go down in flames level madness.
That would be an abusive process, and we intend to take all action allowable under the law, as you're saying, echoing what you're saying.
Blake Lively, in her signature "I'm smarter than everyone" fashion, thought she could slide one past the world. She filed a lawsuit through Vanzan Inc. company, so random and dusty it sounds made up. She really believed this ghost lawsuit would fly under the radar, but the internet, oh baby, the internet clocked it faster than you can say legal disaster.
Well, it's an ethical problem. Well, there's a lot of problems. So the optics of this are terrible. This lends to the credence that this was obviously created not with any good faith basis of a dispute between Vanzan and Doe's.
And where do we even start with this mess? Blake is now on a downward spiral so intense, it makes all her past PR blunders look like baby steps. The woman's unraveling publicly. This isn't just another scandal, this is a masterclass in self-sabotage. A lawsuit with no real defendants, just vague names, John Doe this, John Doe that, as if it's a Netflix whodunit. Girl, who does that?
This Vanzan versus the John Doe's is clearly a Blake Lively lawsuit, but clearly was filed without anybody's actual name to skirt the issue and try to get this more secretive. Now,
this lawsuit had no target, no real defendant, no legit purpose, just a bizarre John Doe mention as if Blake was casting herself in a legal version of Scooby-Doo. It felt more like a puzzle than an actual case. Like, are we supposed to guess who she's mad at now?
Any lawyer will tell you you do not file a complaint if you don't know the name of the person that you are suing, unless you're trying to protect that person's identity for some reason, which if you're pissed off enough to sue them, you probably don't care about their identity.
It was a circus from the jump. Let's file a lawsuit against imaginary people, classic Blake, always trying to rewrite the rules of reality to fit her fairy tale version of victimhood.
Now, this case is now, I think, already been dismissed, right, Ron? So this has already been filed and done with the date of September 27th in New York.
And the timing? Don't even get us started. Suspicious doesn't even begin to cover it.
But our reporters are confirming that too. Yes, this case was dismissed. Unclear when, but from what I gathered as well, right before the CRD was filed in New York from Blake.
Blake just so happened to drop this lawsuit right before the Civil Rights Department got involved with Justin Baldoni. How convenient. Almost like someone was plotting, strategizing, playing legal chess in a dark room filled with smoke and secrets.
It was dismissed voluntarily by Vanzan Inc. just before the New York Times article came out.
And just like that, poof, the whole thing vanished. Vanzan dismissed the lawsuit in December 2024 like it never even happened. But by then, the damage had already been done. Confidential info had been requested, subpoenas were issued, all under the umbrella of a lawsuit that didn't even name anyone. This wasn't an oops, it was a scheme.
No big deal.
That was a company of Blake Lively's. As more and more went through the state of California and other sort of filings, it was owned by Blake Reynolds.
And then came the jaw dropper. Vanzan Inc., that rando company behind the lawsuit, yeah, turns out they share the same address as Blake and Ryan. Insert dramatic gasp here. This wasn't some innocent mistake. This was a play, a messy, reckless, deliberate move.
This Vanzan complaint was created purely with an ulterior motive, which has its ethical implications, if that's true, with regards to the New York State Bar. Probably as Vanzan Inc. probably has some implications. You know, nobody should be wasting the court's time.
If this doesn't scream, let's cook up a shady plan to grab confidential data, then what does? How far were they willing to go? Phone records, sensitive legal files. It's giving, I'll do anything to bury Justin Baldoni.
Lively's lawyers said the newly uncovered lawsuit was common and entirely appropriate, and accused Friedman of faux outrage.
Vanzan Inc. had been dormant for years, suddenly reactivated for one thing, a fake lawsuit. They weren't going after justice, they were on a mission to dig up dirt. And they didn't care how illegal or embarrassing it got.
So by talking to some other folks, I've learned that there was a confidentiality agreement between Stephanie Jones and Baldoni.
And just when we thought it couldn't get messier, bam, Stephanie Jones enters the chat, a PR queen who's worked with both Blake and Justin. Conflict of interest much?
If she were to voluntarily give internal communications between Stephanie Jones and Baldoni to a third party, regardless of the purpose of whether being asked for, that would be a violation of that confidentiality agreement.
She allegedly handed over someone's private phone records to Blake's legal team when no actual case was even active. How? And guess what? This all loops back to WME, the talent agency that reps both Blake and Ryan. A tangled web of PR power and deception.
You know, trying to get the cell phone records from Jennifer Abel, they said they got a subpoena, which also allowed the New York Times to do this as well. Well, we finally now have learned what this so-called case was that everyone's wondering, well, where did this come from?
Vanzan WME shady subpoenas. Every piece they pull brings them closer to total collapse.
Red flag number 2, the context of the complaint are almost nil. There's really, it's like there's no really actual facts.
And you better believe Ryan Reynolds is deep in this too. He might be smiling on Instagram, but behind the scenes, he's watching the empire crumble, one bad move at a time.
Reynolds must have confused the rules of pleading with the rules of evidence, which I've definitely seen some discussion online of people saying that's a little sassy. That is a little sassy.
At this point, it's not just Blake versus Justin, it's Blake and Ryan versus reality. The manipulation off the charts. The shady decisions out of control.
Yeah, I think we've noticed over the past couple of weeks even, there have been a few clips that have come out of the woodwork essentially about Ryan that sleuths have found with some kind of problematic moments. And then there's also been the whole kid pool controversy, which definitely doesn't make him look great either.
Ryan is livid. He's not just watching a bad PR moment, he's watching Blake torch everything they built together. Reputation, credibility, legacy. This isn't about a misstep. It's a full-scale implosion.
Now here Friedman is quoted in TMZ. Let's look at what he said. Mr. Reynolds' exploitation of his enormous power in Hollywood continues, this time arrogantly asking to be dismissed from the case despite his publicly documented involvement extending far beyond just being a supportive spouse.
Blake didn't just mess up her own name, she dragged Ryan into it. He's the collateral damage, stuck in a soap opera he never auditioned for. And by the look on his face, he wants out.
And this is something they reiterate a lot. We disagree, here's why, but worst case scenario, if we lose, we are allowed legally to go make an amendment, and we should at least be doing that.
And now, the biggest question, how far will Blake and Ryan go to protect their brand? Because it's clear they're willing to torch truth, ethics, and common sense to spin their version of reality.
Ryan, again, as I said, it seems very obvious to me that Ryan is the hand behind everything that is happening here. Justin Baldoni, he is playing a fake alpha.
But newsflash, this isn't some cheeky PR stunt. It's a legal catastrophe. And Blake, she's officially dethroned herself. All those "I'm being attacked because I'm a woman" cries, honey, not even your fans are buying it anymore.
What a manipulative, lying little twerp she is. I cannot stand her for this.
So now the world watches. Will Ryan Reynolds stand by the woman who's taken his career hostage, or will he walk away from this disaster before it swallows them both?
She writes, on another occasion, Mr. Baldoni and Ms. Lively were filming a slow dance scene for a montage in which no sound was recorded. Mr. Baldoni chose to let the camera roll and have them perform the scene, but did not act in character as Ryle. Instead, he spoke to Ms. Lively out of character as himself. At one point, he leaned forward and slowly dragged his lips from her ear and down her neck as he said, "It smells so good."
This all started as Blake's master plan to obliterate Justin Baldoni. But it didn't end with his fall, it ended with hers. She went after him, wielding weaponized feminism, a sob story, and a lawsuit with more holes than a fishnet dress. The other side was running away. We found them, but the public didn't cheer. They clapped back hard. The internet ripped Blake's story to shreds. The subpoenas? Suspicious. The company? Shady. The moves? Questionable at best and manipulative at worst. Instead of looking like a brave, wronged woman standing up to a bully, she ended up becoming the villain in her own narrative. And Ryan? He's not just the innocent husband standing off to the side. The first amended complaint didn't let him off the hook. It specifically laid out receipts, pointing to his own alleged actions and painting him not just as a bystander, but as a co-conspirator. Let that sink in. Blake didn't just drag herself down, she brought Ryan with her. The man who spent years curating this slick, lovable, quick-witted public image is now knee-deep in subpoenas, fake lawsuits, and a crisis he didn't script. Instead of making gin ads or cracking jokes as Deadpool, he's now caught in a legal meltdown that looks more like an episode of Scandal than real life. And get this, Blake allegedly accused Justin of sexual harassment, but by the time their movie premiered, they weren't even speaking. She made him stay in the basement. And Ryan, he allegedly backed her up with a full-blown PR campaign to discredit Baldoni. Yeah, that's the vibe. The lawsuit Blake filed, it was laughably thin. The lawyers reviewing the case said her team failed to establish any credible basis for liability and that the arguments were, well, laughable. They fell flat repeatedly. Meanwhile, Ryan's coolest guy in the room brand is in tatters. This is a man who literally built his empire off his likability. But now, he's being dragged into shady legal schemes, accused of collusion, and caught up in PR war zones that are making him look more like a manipulator than a hero. Let's talk about the address. 888 7th Avenue, 4th floor. Sound familiar? Because that's the same address tied to Vanzan Inc. Oh yes, this company wasn't just pulled out of thin air. It's deeply connected to Blake and Ryan's legal web. The registered agent, Eric Binder. Another name conveniently tied to their team. This wasn't a coincidence. This was chess. Messy, reckless, losing chess. That's why so many people are calling it a smoke and mirrors scheme, a strategy to protect themselves while getting their hands on confidential data they had no business touching. And it worked until it didn't. Because now the world sees through it, and in one of the legal filings, Ryan's response was so sassy and filled with pop culture references, someone literally called it a burn book moment. Yes, like Mean Girls, his shade was unmistakable. But let's be honest, if you're throwing Mean Girls level sass into a federal court document, you're not just defending yourself, you're turning the court into your personal PR battleground. So what is Ryan really doing in all this? Is he just Blake's silent sidekick? Or is he actively involved in orchestrating this legal mess? Because let's be real, Ryan's been known to operate behind the scenes. Just because Kenny's known to operate behind the scenes. He's got that polished charm in front of cameras, but insiders are whispering that he's way more involved than he lets on. His production company, Maximum Effort Productions, is everywhere in this case. And now people are asking if Ryan's real effort wasn't just making gin or Netflix movies, but helping Blake bend the legal system to their will. Meanwhile, poor Justin Baldoni. His career has taken blow after blow. The New York Times expose on him, it dropped conveniently around the time this whole mess was unraveling. Suspicious completely, because what kind of timing is that? A man goes from being one of the most beloved up-and-coming directors and actors to being publicly humiliated. Coincidentally, all while fighting back against Blake's wild legal accusations. It doesn't take a conspiracy theorist to see this as a strategic smear campaign. And surprise, surprise, Justin's team says it was exactly that. A calculated media move. According to his lawsuit, he outright accuses both Blake and Ryan of colluding with the New York Times to drag him through the mud. Allegedly, they worked behind the scenes for months, coordinating their hit job like it was a movie script. But Justin didn't just sit there and take it. His legal team came back hard. They tore apart Blake's subpoenas, arguing they were illegally used to extract information under false pretenses. This wasn't legal strategy, it was legal manipulation. And that, folks, is not just unethical, it might be criminal. And just when you thought the drama hit its peak, in Waltz's Katy Perry, of all people, with a parallel drama that weirdly echoes Blake's playbook, Katy, who recently had a weird meltdown over a light jab from Wendy's, yes, the burger chain, snapped on Twitter about her space journey. The world clowned her, and rightly so. But what does this have to do with Blake? Well, it's that same victim complex. Katy overreacted to a fast food tweet. Blake weaponized feminism and filed shady lawsuits. Both are trying to twist public opinion in their favor. Both are out here playing martyr while the internet eats them alive. And Wendy's, they won the PR war with one tweet. The comparison is uncanny and damning. Now let's go back to the real heart of this chaos, the straw lawsuit scandal. For those unfamiliar, a straw lawsuit is basically a fake lawsuit filed to get information you'd normally never be allowed to access. It's not real, it's a prop. A tool used to legally snoop. That's exactly what Blake's legal team is accused of doing. The lawsuit wasn't about justice. It was a front to subpoena data, hunt down phone records, and get dirt on people they wanted to bury. But here's the problem. Once you cross that line, once you use the courts like a tabloid, you break trust. You break the system. And the consequences? Oh, they're coming. Because this isn't just about Blake's broken image. It's about real legal consequences. If the court determines Blake and Ryan misused the legal system for a PR vendetta, they could both be facing penalties that go far beyond the courtroom. And here's where it gets personal. Ryan Reynolds has spent years building this perfect man persona. He's the guy every brand wants, every fan adores, every studio banks on, but what happens when that guy is suddenly connected to a legal scandal so messy, so shady, it makes even Hollywood behind the scenes. Word is Ryan is panicking. He's reportedly distancing himself from Blake's decisions, staying unusually quiet, and even reconsidering how tightly their brands are tied. Rumors are swirling of marital strain, PR meetings gone off the rails, and Ryan asking his team, how do we fix this? Because this isn't just bad press. This is career-destroying chaos. If Ryan doesn't make a move soon, he's going down with her. And let's not forget, his whole image is based on being the guy who makes everything look effortless. The jokes, the charm, the marriage, but this is messy, ugly, career-wrecking stuff. If he doesn't jump ship soon, he's going to end up being remembered not as the lovable Ryan Reynolds, but as the husband who stood by while Blake Lively ruined everything. So buckle up, because this isn't over. The lawsuit may be dismissed, but the fallout has just begun, and as more truths come to light, it's clear. Blake Lively didn't just file a fake lawsuit, she filed for a full-on reputation collapse. And Ryan Reynolds, he might be the next one to fall. He might be the next one to fall.